So welcome to the second part of this Build With Me project. This is for this C51 RGB LED display, which we built up from a kit in the first part, which will be linked to somewhere, I don't know, up here, maybe over here, maybe down there, somewhere it'll be linked to. But in this part we're making a case for this. So I designed in Fusion 360 a case for this, and I printed it out on my 3D printer, and here we have it. It comes in 4 pieces, mainly because my printer doesn't go wide enough, so I had to split it into 2 separate halves, which will fit together. And I've got the hot melt glue gun on, heating up as we speak, to stick this together. These 2 little bits are just a little bit of reinforcing for this joint. Turn this around very noisily. You can see that this fits in just nicely. As you can see, the profile is sort of like a domed sort of light cover. And I've got some clear like acetate, which I'm going to glue over this, but I also have some diffusing material like frosting film that you can put on windows that I'll also stick onto that. It gives it a little bit more rigidity, and it's also self-adhesive, so it will stick to the sides and the ends of this and hopefully create a nice soft diffused glow. We'll see as we get this project underway. So just to protect my so carefully looked after worktop, but mainly to stop the parts sticking to the worktop whenever I glue them up, I've just put some baking parchment paper down. That will guarantee that no glue will stick where it isn't supposed to. Just put a small bead across there and then press this into place till it cools. It may be that that glue bond would be enough, but I just wanted to be sure. So I printed out these little support pieces as well. One we've got to be just careful not to cover up the hole that we made for our light dependent resistor to peek through. As you can see, we've managed to avoid it. But the great thing about it is that as it cools, it hardens, and so it's a little bit like super glue, but a little bit easier to control and a bit more gap filling. You can see a couple of areas where my printer laid down a bit of burnt filament. And then I also got a little hole here. This is for the power cable to come out. So the 3D file for the STL file for this will be in the description, or linked to in the description below, probably in the Thingiverse page. And I'll also link to where I got my frosting film from. And as you may or may not be able to make out, I've actually got it cut. I have a vinyl cutter, a Silhouette Cameo 4, very handy. And I've cut out 2 pieces of this, and I've just got to find my acetate, which is around here somewhere, and then we can begin assembling all of this. And of course I've got to desolder and then resolder this back on. One moment please. So I found it. I got this from Amazon. I'll try and find the link and put it in the description below. It's basically for making cakes. It's called a cake color, but it It's just a nice, reasonably thick, I think it says it's 125 micron thick film. It's just very handy. I got it for actually another project which I will make a video about at some point. Another project in making some other video lights. And it's just very useful as a clear screen, or alternatively to add this frosting film to it. You may be able to see that I've made, this is far too big actually for what is needed. All I need is for this film, this clear film, to be able to wrap around from here all the way around to here. I don't want it to overlap onto this. I've something else in mind for fixing it in place. To make it easier to cut this perfectly to size, or at least relatively perfectly, I made one of these frosted squares to be the size that I need. So I can stick that on this. This will then become the inside, and then the larger one will go on the outside, and it itself will stick down onto these flat edges. That's the plan anyway. We shall see how well it goes. Right, so sorry for this being absurdly bright. Turn that down a little bit. One of the tricks with working with vinyl to get it positioned correctly is to use our good friend, a piece of parchment paper. What you can do is, we've got our shiny acetate there. Now it's not super critical where we put this frosting on, because we've cut that piece of vinyl too big anyway. But we don't want to get it all wrinkled up. Here we have our pieces of frosting, and so I can just gently peel this one off. I can actually stick it down onto the parchment paper, but it won't stick. I'm able to move things around, and I can feel where the ends are of this acetate. I've left just a little bit off the edge so that I can actually stick that down. So I can stick that down. And the great thing is you can lift up the parchment paper, a bit like a flap, and then just peel off a little bit at a time and press it down. So we don't get air bubbles, we don't get creases. Just goes down nice and neat. Now I can trim around this. You can trim around it using scissors if you want. I've got a rotary trimmer, so that's what I'm going to use. And there we go. Our first stage of diffusion. Take this out of the way. Very nice. Now we have to start getting a little bit more precise. We're going to have to be a little bit more precise, because whenever we apply this larger piece, we're wanting this to be kind of pretty much in the center of that as much as possible. So a little bit more care will be needed. We also have to be careful because this larger section will have sticky edges. So that's going to create an additional challenge, shall we say. So I just remembered, before we get to the point of transferring and sticking on that other piece of frosted film, is that I have to desolder these power leads, feed them through the little hole, and then resolder them, because this is not going to be easily releasable. Just before I put this in, I'll show you on this. You can see down here, and that there's actually a little ledge being created within this, or step. That's all the way around for the circuit board to sit on, just so it raises it up slightly, so it's not getting mashed against the back. Fits in just nice and snugly. Just before we stick a lid on, because it is going to be stuck on, we just want to make sure that that works. Okay. So you can see the effect there, just with one layer of diffused material. And because we're making a second layer of diffusion, it will diffuse it that little bit more. It won't make it like a solid bar, but it will just spread the light a bit more than just it being like that. So I'm just providing a little bit of strain relief just by using some hot melt glue. That should hopefully just help to keep things from popping loose. So here we are. We need to use our little trick with the parchment paper again. We can peel this off. And again, we're going to put it on, and we're going to just overhang the side by a little bit. Now, we're going to use the backing paper because of the overhang, that this is slightly bigger. I don't know whether you can see there. You can just see the underneath. It's not very easy to see, I will grant you that. We're able to hopefully get it squared up. You can just see the end here, it's overlapping very slightly. And there it is. So you can see where it is overlapped, but we still have a sticky edge top, bottom, and also the edges, and that's hopefully to stick on the side, to the other side, and also these two rounded edges. So now, the moment of truth. Will I be peeling all of this off in just a minute when I've discovered that it doesn't fit perfectly? We shall see. I should just lightly press that down. I'm not sure if I've made this ever so slightly too, yes, slightly too small. It's okay. We just stick it up a little bit higher. because I've only lightly pressed it down, it didn't stick fully. This is actually quite firm now and quite not really wanting to bend. As you can see, it's come up on the other end. This time I am firmly pressing it in. Hopefully that will hold it. There we go, a little bit fiddly, but we got there in the end. And now to see just what sort of effect it has. Let's just turn the light off. That diffuses that very nicely. Just didn't quite get it very straight. And I will make some adjustments to the SVG files that are used for cutting out the vinyl. I'll adjust those and add those adjusted files to the description, linked below. We hope you enjoyed watching along as I've fumbled my way through this. If you like this sort of thing, please consider subscribing, or at least come back and see from time to time what other Build With Me projects I have managed to do. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you then.